Have you ever wondered if there's more to life than what meets the eye? What if the way you see yourself and the world is just the tip of the iceberg? Hi, I'm Gina. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be diving into the profound journey of expanding your consciousness. This isn't about meditation or mindfulness, though we will touch on that briefly. It's about unlocking new layers of awareness and experiencing life with greater depth, clarity, and purpose. Whether you feel stuck in old patterns or simply curious about how to access a higher state of being, this video is for you. Together, we're going to explore practical steps and timeless wisdom to help you see beyond the surface and awaken you to the possibility within and around you. Are you ready? Let's begin. Okay, as I mentioned briefly, we're just going to touch on meditation and mindfulness. And the only reason I bring this up is because I just need to highlight the importance of mindfulness and being aware. Being open in each moment opens the door to deeper awareness. If, for example, you are always in a rush and you're running around, it doesn't create space to allow you to reflect on what's happening in the current moment. If you're constantly rushing around and you're exhausted, that is the number one step, is to slow down, take a breath, and be present. Sometimes this will take a week or 2 weeks for you to really get into the rhythm of becoming more aware of what your body is asking for, of your tendencies, of your sleep habitual patterns. All of these little things about yourself and being mindful are so important and is the number one step to meditation and mindfulness. Meditation, as I mentioned before, always creates a space between the way that you respond to life and your reactions to life. Sometimes it's so easy to just react at every single thing that is coming towards you. Life is full of challenges. It's bound to happen. It's something that we can count on. Being human entails a life where we will always be challenged. Can you imagine a life where you're never challenged and what that potentially could cause? It could cause so much grief in the long term if you are living life so seamlessly and so effortlessly to the point where when that one day hits and something horrible happens, can you imagine how you would take on that challenge? So in many ways, you're able to shift your perspective, but first and foremost is getting the rest that you need, listening to your body when it's asking you for nutrients, and letting thy food be your medicine as opposed to eating junk that is just going to fulfill you for a moment in time and not enough and not really bringing you the things that you need. And I'm also referring to this concept of we are what we consume. And if you are consuming mindless scrolling on the internet and you're getting distracted and that's your way of relaxation, then that is also the first step of understanding that we are what we consume, not just the food that we eat, but also what we are taking in mentally. And so it's really shifting this and starting your day with this sort of 5 minutes of awareness and observation of how you're feeling in the day. And I can honestly say that it becomes a habitual thing after you do it time and time again. But until you practice it, and you're not gonna achieve greatness in one day. It takes time and effort, habitual patterns. It takes 3 months, I believe, in the Power of Habit or Atomic Habits to build a habit. So just have faith, keep on going, and just be more aware of what it is your body needs and take care of yourself. That is first and foremost. Once you get that down, the second thing would be self-inquiry and reflection. So this goes even deeper into asking yourself who you are, making sure that you're very clear about your own values, your morals, your belief systems, what's important to you, All of these things are so core and so key to who you are. I spent a lot of time looking into astrology, even taking the Myers-Briggs test, all of these tools that allow you to gain more perspective on yourself and your perspective and your tendencies and your habitual ways. There is no right and wrong, and you can take a lot of these experiments with a grain of salt. I started my spiritual journey through, my first book was actually The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and that was ages ago. And it's wild because I can read parts about it that I highlighted back then and they still resonate, but in a different way because I've evolved and I've changed, but a lot of that still stands true. So it's just getting curious about who you are, asking yourself, what do I truly value? And asking yourself if your life in your physical reality is a true reflection of all of the things that you do value. Because if not, then it's time to really do some digging and ask yourself more questions that could potentially lead you towards the life of your dreams and what you truly want in life. So asking these questions will unlock completely new layers of understanding of yourself and your tendencies. I'm going to share some very transformative reflections that I've had as of late. My most recent was reading this book called Transurfing. One chapter was about chasing the reflection. I was like, you know what? That's so interesting because this week I could not stop looking in a mirror and just being like, you know, I'm looking at the scale, I'm looking at me, and I'm like, I don't feel like the way that I perceive this person is me. And one thing in life that we can constantly count on is change. And every single day we are born into this life again. We go to sleep and we are reborn and we get to live life and we can get to live another day. And I can honestly say that I'm so grateful every morning that I wake. That being said, I realized that I would attach myself to this past version of who I was and thinking like who I needed to be, but because I was fearful of other people's opinions about me. Subconsciously, right? Like I could say that I don't care, but just by me being fearful about not looking good in a picture or being fearful of what they might think because I feel like I'm evolving and I'm changing, and a lot of the things that I used to value, I no longer value. So I'm not going to force myself to be somebody else who I used to be. And in turn, it's sad because some of your friends might feel as though they're losing a friend because you're no longer that person that can share all of those same things. But that's just a part of life. We don't grow in a linear way. We all are growing and expanding and evolving in different ways. And sometimes we need to separate to grow and we could potentially come back together. But for us to chase this reflection of what people are expecting us to be is never going to make us happy. And it's only gonna push us further and further away from who we truly are. And it's so important in this moment of self-inquiry and reflection to understand who you are and understand flaws and your strengths and your passions and things that just light you up, because those are the centers that you want to ignite. Everybody is so unique that we all have this spark of creativity that's triggered when we give ourselves the permission to go for it and to explore that. Until we give ourselves that chance, we're gonna be stuck. And that's why I mentioned mindfulness at the beginning, because it's just being so aware of your dreams and your goals and yourself that you're so focused on your trajectory of where you want to go. Because it sometimes takes time to sort of shift your train and of thought in a different direction. Because habitually speaking, it's easy to just continue to keep on going in that route, but sometimes we get kind of led astray, and the way to come back to ourselves is just reassessing everything again. It's not necessarily taking action. Sometimes it's just sitting still and getting clear and creating space within to be able to reflect. Because if our mind is going at 1,000,000 miles a minute, it's really difficult to think clearly and to process things clearly. And I think another thing is using any sort of substance that deters you and kind of takes you away from being present. And one thing I would mention is alcohol. I think alcohol is a depressant, and in many ways it's really fun in a moment, but actually after, it really brings you down. It's truly like, if you really look at it, it's like kind of a poison for your body. There's other things that you can drink and enjoy that are really good for your body, and that's what we should be celebrating. We can celebrate these things that we feed our body, but if we're putting poison into our body, it actually is deterring us from staying focused and on track to what we truly believe that we deserve, because what we consume is a true reflection of how much we truly value ourselves. Because think about like what you want to feed your body. Like if your body is a temple and it's something that you want to preserve and stay healthy, like why would you give it junk food? And junk food would be an analogy for just mindless scrolling and things that are not going to move you in the direction of your dreams. Okay, so another one I'd like to talk about is expanding your mind through knowledge. So we already talked about the concept of being mindful in the way that you consume anything. It takes practice, because if you constantly are telling yourself that at the end of the day you're exhausted and the only energy that you have is to sit on a couch and consume reality TV, things that are just not great for you. I think everything in moderation. If you're gonna scroll mindlessly, I think there should be a blockout of like intentionally like scrolling. I've discovered that reading and exploring new philosophies, science, can truly expand your mind and your subconscious thoughts in ways that you could have never imagined. And let me tell you a story that recently I'm reading this book by Carlo Ravello, and he taps into the history behind all of the physicists and that have allowed us to see how science and truth go hand in hand, and what we know for certain based off of mathematics and whatnot. So it's fascinating, you know. Einstein literally continued the studies of gravity and space and time and was able to find the equation that proves the concept of gravity and relativity. It broadened my mind so much that I was able to shift something and access a part of my mind whilst dreaming. And I have no doubts that I was able to expand my consciousness through knowledge and through exploration, because this book brought me so much excitement. I was so excited. I want to give this example. You know, when you are surrounded by nature and you just feel so tiny, but then sometimes when you there's this aspect of like being on earth and feeling so little, but then sometimes also feeling so expansive at the same time. And that's what I feel like reading does to me. It expands my mind to see the bigger picture and expand all the way to the galaxy. And then it also makes me feel so little and so like minute. And it's just so amazing. So I think that's also really important. Another factor would be our connection to nature. I really believe that there are things that can't be explained, but there is something to say for feeling so good after just being outside or sitting on the ground, on the grass, or like even hugging a tree. I heard this thing today and I want to try it, but I've always felt so soothed by hearing the birds, by sitting outside in nature, just taking in vitamin D. I heard this thing about a gal, like when you're feeling sort of negative, just standing in front of a tree. There was this book that I read and it's called Earthing. And the beautiful thing about nature is that when we do grounding practices and we start walking on nature, actually, and we touch our body and our feet to that ground and touch the ground, it naturally reduces inflammation. A lot of the diseases that we carry are caused by inflammation, but this book has these two images. One, it's like an infrared image of someone before and after grounding. And when I say grounding practices, I mean just standing or sitting or lying on the earth, like barefoot and touching the ground, the grass, the dirt, what have you. After 30 minutes, they did another infrared scan of the human, and lo and behold, it reduced inflammation in the human, which is so insane. So I think another way to kind of get grounded and sort of back in your body and feel connected to nature, feel connected to your body and yourself and safe, like there's this safety that comes, and all this also this like concept of feeling so small but so simple too, in like the beauty of life and just remembering what is important. So there's so much beautiful history that comes with it, but in this day and age we live in a time where there's just so many distractions that it's easy to just say I don't have the time, when in reality it's something we can change in our mind, because everything is in our head. We can change our mind about these things, because that's, I think, what life is about. It's shifting perspective and really staying on the side of solution and staying on the side of not being defeated, not playing the victim, and having faith and staying focused. Okay, so the next part that I wanted to get into is expanding your consciousness through dream work. And I've been really exploring these avenues because in my history, I've done a lot of research on, I've always been really fascinated by the idea of psychology, by our mind, by human behavior, and I used to be fearful in many ways. I used to use the terminology like narcissists, and to be honest, it's because one of my biggest triggers is someone who's really selfish, and I tend to have an aversion to that, and I have an aversion to conflict as well. So those two aspects just do not combine well. Over time, I have practice more meditation, and now my new practice is having more compassion and kindness for people that perhaps cannot see as clearly as we can. The fact of the matter is, spiritual growth and spiritual evolution is honestly it's not something that everybody gets to. It is a gift to be able to practice spiritual growth. A lot of people don't get the opportunity to practice it because they're so worried about what they need to feed someone an hour from now, or even just what they need to eat, or like having shelter. I still need to do this, but I'm going to make a video on just freedom and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you're at a point where you have the opportunity and like the time to literally invest in your spiritual growth, you are so much better off than so many other people in this world, because a lot of people don't have the resources to just put food on the table, or even let alone have a roof over their heads. In many ways, I always come back to the fact that I am so lucky and I can have compassion for others who are suffering and who don't have the clarity or the resources to expand their mind like I do. It's not about comparing yourself day to day to people who have more or less. It's just truly being grateful every single day for your own life and for life today. And it's a blessing to be alive in so many ways. We live in a time where we have so much access to knowledge and information, and we have the most freedom. If you live in the States, like I think in the States, take freedom for granted. And a lot of countries don't have that opportunity. So I also think practicing compassion for others and kindness is one of the biggest practices and one of the most difficult challenges that we can practice, but is also the most important thing. Okay, so the next practice that I wanted to mention is our physical practices. I believe that physical practices kind of get you more into your body and understanding your body. So stretching when you feel like something is tense, or every month when I get my period, I tend to get my back starts to hurt. So I'll take magnesium and I'll take things that I know that will help that, or I'll stretch my back. Like getting so in touch that you know that your number one priority is your health and your well-being, and also being in touch with your body and knowing what it needs and what it's asking. So that could be yoga, breath work, it could be going for a walk in nature to clear your head. A lot of these practices are so good for your body, and also like making sure that you increase your heart rate through cycling and cardio, because all of these factors, you might think that you look great on the external, but a lot of things on the external and the physical are kind of deceiving, because I'll be honest, I just went to the doctor and I found out that my cholesterol was high, and I was like shocked, because it is something that runs in my family naturally, like something that my family like has in their bloodline. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, well, it's time for me to improve then, and things are ready. I'm going to change and I'm going to make that effort. And it's been so great and I feel amazing. So a lot of these practices just align the body and mind, which just create more space for expanded awareness. I want to touch on one more thing, and it kind of goes back to the concept of having compassion and kindness towards others. When we help others selflessly, we transcend our ego to experience the interconnectedness of all beings. We live in a day and age where there's so much terminology about narcissists and all of these things that are so negative. And I can't stress this enough, but I just feel like a lot of people who are suffering can't see it, and they just follow this ritual. If you feel like you are being victimized day in and day out, that will literally be your life, no matter what. So I have to go into an office where I know I'm going to be running into someone that is constantly reacting to everything that's happening in their life. If anything happens to them and they don't like the outcome and they don't like how this person is playing out their role in their life, they will react and get angry. And so I always am preparing myself for the worst. And by preparing myself, this means that I'm so aware of myself that I know that the way that they're reacting and responding to me is a reflection of who they are and is not my responsibility to take on. And therefore, I am not going to engage, because I have the wisdom and the knowledge to know how they have habitually always been. And it's sad, because when somebody cannot control their anger and cannot control their emotions and are constantly reacting to everything, it's a really tough life. And honestly, I have compassion for them now. And I used to be like, I need to protect myself, but I realized over time that actually having compassion for this being and in the moments that they're having the hardest time, like when they're getting upset and angry, is something that I can gift them. And I'm okay with that. I mean, if you think about it, it's something that's free. And because I have that compassion, it does make me feel more connected to them, and it does make me drop my ego, because I know I can handle it. And sometimes all you need to tell yourself is like, I can handle this. I'm okay. Like, I have the capacity for this. And if you don't have the capacity for something like this, then it's also okay to step back and not engage and remove yourself from the situation entirely. But I honestly in this situation, I'm very grateful, because without this person challenging me, who would challenge me? You know, like, every other aspect of my life is amazing and I have nothing to complain about. And I'm just so grateful. And if there's this one person that I am challenged by, then I feel grateful that they can challenge me and prepare me for potentially something that could be even worse, you know? So it's just constantly shifting that perspective and understanding what you're capable of doing. Because one more thing, I feel like if someone, I'm here, like, we start the day and we're feeling pretty good usually, but usually we are here. And if you are aware of David R. Hawkins, he has this chart. It is called the levels of consciousness, and it's this chart that goes from, like, there's like neutral feeling, and then it goes, like, as you go down, it kind of changes the vibration. So anger, resentment, fear, all of these things are on the lower spectrum of the chart. And when you go to neutrality, apathy, or, you know, bliss and like joy, all of these things are at the top and they're positive vibrations. I usually have these practices in the morning that kind of make me feel very grounded and steady. So I'm not below neutral. I'm always slightly above, but it requires me to take care of my body, take care of my mind, see where I'm feeling, making sure I'm clean, all of the things. When I go to the office and someone reacts or gets angry, I stand my ground. I'm like, this is not a reflection of me. This is a reflection of them. Obviously, you need to have integrity to understand the real situation, because we have to be really, truly honest with ourselves. Like, is this person, I think this is where mindfulness begins, is that understanding the bigger picture and being able to zoom out and also put yourself in the other person's shoes. Because sometimes it's not just one person, it's our fault too. And there's things that we can also improve. So being able to zoom in and zoom out, put yourself in someone else's shoes, and etc., is so key to being able to stay neutral and not allow your mind to engage with this negativity. Because when someone says someone negative to you and you're in neutral, it's so easy to just dip down and be unaware and less mindful and go down to their level and say something negative, and yet they'll say something negative again, and then you say something negative, and it's just constantly going to keep on going. But the concept and the idea is that when they say something negative, you stand firm and you just don't even react. It's not going to be easy at the beginning, but you kind of maybe just step back. And I promise you, it gets easier and easier. There's this idea that you can't let somebody hurt you unless you let them. And so if you stay here, they're gonna just keep on trying to nag, right? Or they'll just kind of stop because you're not engaging, you're not interacting, and it's their thing. And the more they say negativity to you, they're just gonna bring themselves down. But you stay here and you go and do the things that will lift you. Eat healthy, consume things that will motivate you to be better. Go call a friend. Do things that are on the positive spectrum that will, like, inspire you. That could be reading a book that's going to bring you up to feeling inspired. All of these things, you have the tools and you know, and it sounds like it's common sense, right? But in the midst of it, it's so difficult to see. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap this video up. This was so much fun. I really wanted to tap into the common misconceptions about expansion and expanding your consciousness. Expanding consciousness does not mean that it happens overnight. Oh, when I say that this is a lifelong journey, I'm telling you, you're going to have many, many spiritual awakenings, and you know, like, that word is thrown around constantly, but it's honestly just constant spiritual growth and evolution. And if you keep on practicing that and strengthen your mind and strengthen your inner being, your inner self, focus less on the externals and focus more on your inner self, and focus so much that you become so confident within yourself and you can trust yourself to make the right decisions. But it just takes that constant effort that will build your confidence to the point where you'll be like, wow, you're literally untouchable. It's literally like a superpower. I'm telling you, you will not regret this. You will stay young. You will have this energy that is magnetic. You will be able to attract the right people who see you, because that's what matters. You want to be surrounded by people who see your light and who inspire you. And if someone is, sometimes you will make others feel bad because they see you and they see themselves, and you kind of put this mirror towards them, like to the reality of who they are or who they could be. If there's something that you have that they envy, then they will potentially subconsciously react in ways that they can't explain, but they will just be doing it. And that's the thing, is that you're not going to be able to please everybody. So you need to be very firm and know who you are. Make yourself better. Be a better person. Like, improve yourself. Be kind. Be that person that's the strength in the room. Be there for people. Like, doing that over and over and over again, I promise you, is only going to bring you strength and confidence in the long run. It's going to strengthen your inner being, your core, and you won't even recognize yourself afterwards, but you'll be glowing and you'll feel it and you'll feel good, and you'll realize that all of the answers that you are seeking were not outside of yourself. Everything is within, and it just takes that consistency and that persistence of going after your dreams and doing the right thing and being there for the people that you love, and also loving yourself, because that comes first. You can't, I think on the airplane, they always say you need to strap yourself in first before you help someone else. You need to put on your mask first before you can help someone else. And sometimes, you know, I know, like, being second generation, my mother did everything for me and my parents did everything for me. But it came with some sacrifice. And I think that now, in retrospect, I would honestly say what's important is to take care of yourself first, and to make sure that you are being true to yourself and you are valuing yourself. And I'm not saying be selfish. I'm just saying that people that you surround yourself with are a reflection of who you are. And if there's somebody in your life that you find is being disrespectful or is not on the same trajectory as you and is being selfish and or whatever, sometimes the best way is to remove yourself a little bit and try and gain more perspective and clarity. And sometimes people actually exit your life because they're meant to not be there, and it's okay, and you just need to let things go when they just let go. Any sort of grasping and holding on too tightly is never going to work. You have to just constantly have the courage to change and to evolve, to be yourself and be true to yourself. And everything will just fall into place. And the right person, friends, partner, significant other, your lover, they'll just see you and things will just happen effortlessly, and there won't be that tumultuous thing. It won't feel controlled. It'll feel really natural. And so difficult moments will often force us to confront and expand our limiting viewpoints. This is why it's so important to change and why it's so important to be open, because we don't have all the answers, and sometimes we just need to focus on the present moment of being the best person that we can be. When you really think about it, we don't need to attach ourselves to who we used to be, and we can focus on who we are today. We can focus on where we're going and imagine someone who is successful and has integrity and is a true kind man. That person, how do they go about their life? They take things on day by day, and they're so clear-headed that they know the steps that they need to take to achieve whatever, but they're just very present. They know how to respond in those moments efficiently, effectively. Expanding your consciousness is about peeling back all of the layers of who you think you are to discover the infinite potential of who you could be. So now I ask you, what steps are you going to take to expand your consciousness? Start the conversation below because I'd love to hear. I hope that this video has inspired you to take the first step towards a more expansive, connected, and meaningful life. Cheers and sending all the love. Mwah.